So let me forewarn, this is a rumor. This is a rumor. But the leaks from this particular source have come out consistently true. It should follow that this is also true based on track record, but I have no insider knowledge, so I'm just passing along information. And I don't do these videos unless we have good reason to think this is true. And you can kind of read it either way in terms of the Dune angle. I think this is, however, basically negative. So what is it? Well, there's been a lot of fan casting for Feyd, and for those who are completely new, Feyd is a basically major villain in Dune the novel and should be in Dune Part 2. Denis Villeneuve has confirmed he is having Feyd show up in Dune Part 2. We are going to get Feyd, and Barry Kay has been a very popular choice among the fans, but if this is correct, that may not happen because Barry Kay is, yes, the Joker and the new Batman with Matt Reeves. Now, the Batman has already been shot, it just needs to be released. They're just probably at most doing some additional editing and just getting ready for the marketing. So it shouldn't technically conflict with Dune Part 2, right? Because the role is already done. You can just move from the Joker to Feyd. And in terms of publicity, it actually helps, right? Because if he's doing this one major villain role, he can go into this other major villain role, and basically they should help each other out. But the reality is, usually when you sign to these contracts, you're being locked in for quite a while. And a major part of this is reshoots. And reshoots happen all the time. They happen unexpectedly. This sort of happened with Henry Cavill, right? Because he had to go back to do Justice League, but he was also doing Mission Impossible, and that created a huge dilemma for Justice League with Joss Whedon. So in principle, yes, he could do both roles, and Dune still needs months away to start beginning production. But the likelihood of him being able to basically juggle both roles is frankly unclear. I would think this is negative then. If Barry Kay is playing the Joker, he's just not going to have time or the energy, frankly, to do something else like Feyd. Because again, usually with these things, this is being set up for a sequel, obviously. They're going to continue with. So for all we know, they're already getting started on Batman Part 2. And that obviously means he can't do certain other things. It's possible he could do both roles, but if this is true, I think it's highly likely he cannot do Feyd. So if you were counting on Feyd being played by Barry Kay, that will probably not happen. And conversely, even if it is true, no, they're going to be able to fit. I mean, technically, Stellan Skarsgård did only a few weeks of shooting, but that was very deliberate because we're not getting a lot of the Baron in Part 1, but we're going to get, I think, a lot of the Baron in Part 2 and a lot of Feyd and both of them together. And we don't know what the demands will be in terms of makeup, training. So if Barry is playing the Joker and the new Matt Reeves Batman, I think this is pretty much spelling the end of the possibility of him being Feyd, but it is possible he could do both. Right, it is possible. I just think the likelihood it's not going to be able to happen. He can do both roles at the same time. But he is a very popular choice. But there is one final thing, is that Barry is a little shorter than Timothée, and in the books at least, Feyd and Paul should be sort of comparable heights. Easier to buy an actor who's a little taller than Timothée or at Timothée's height. I know a lot of fans want him, but he's not the most exact fit for Feyd, but I agree. I think he's actually a very good actor. I think in Eternals he was very, very good. He's one of the best parts of Eternals, and I thought his performance as Droog was actually very, very powerful. So I'm on board with the idea. I don't have any strong preference. I'm actually very open to who Feyd will be. I predicted it's going to be Dev Patel, and if this news is correct, that's probably much more likely because Dev usually does much smaller projects, so it's easier for him to move around to go back and forth between kind of independent films and big budget projects. But the Batman is huge. It's a very big commitment. It's unclear how the contract works with him, if he's doing the Joker, if he has to do reshoots, and so on and so forth. There's a rumor, can't say for sure, but if it's true, then I'm thinking Barry Kay can no longer be Feyd, but we shall have to wait and see.